Heroes of virtue. I'm going to talk about those. Role play. What do Gen, Alpha, and Beta have to grow up with? Who were the role play role models for children, for millennials, Zoomers, and now Gen Alpha and Gen Beta? If you go back in time, you can see who the role models and the things that kids imitated were. If you take it back to the 50s, it was cowboys and soldiers. There was G.I. Joe. I don't know if that came in the 1950s or the 1960s, but there was a generation of kids that grew up with G.I. Joes. Then it went away, and then it came back for the 80s kids. 50s kids had cowboys and westerns and John Wayne and Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers and things like this. And then they went into the space age, and there was Major Matt Mason. There was James Bond was very popular. Still around, James Bond. We still have this today. It was Sean Connery, James Bond in the 1960s. That would like bring us into the space age with all the tech and the gadgets and stuff, which was, I think, really more to do with the 1970s Roger Moore, where they really pushed all the gadgets and stuff. They had these with the Sean Connery, James Bond, but it's a thing that people grew up with. And like I knew somebody had a James Bond car and had an ejector seat in it. It's probably highly collectible now. And it had like a sunroof, and then you could push a button and it would eject the passenger out of the car, or whoever you wanted, I guess. And so that was the spying, the technology, getting kids interested in Her Majesty's Secret Service and whatever all that was. So then you could say in the 70s, I'm trying to think of stuff that had an influence on people in the 70s. Movies and TV shows, whatever it was. I just want to keep it moving. So you can't really say that Star Wars had an influence over the 70s, because Star Wars kind of came out at the end of the 70s. I would say that Kiss had a more influence in the 70s on children, because they did. They made dolls of Kiss, and they're ugly kabuki demons and drag queens and all this stuff. Knights in Satan's Service, whatever that. It was called Kiss. What does that acronym mean? Did it mean Knights in Satan's Service? Were they transparent about it from the first? So superheroes and comic book stuff, I guess you could say that's part of what the 70s kids had. I don't know what else. I can't remember. I can't tell you. But I would say going into the 80s, that the 80s kids had all the cool stuff, right? They had Star Wars, they had Superman, because even if Star Wars and Superman was at the end of the 70s, that's really the beginning of the 80s, and it stuck around. That's when the sequels came out, right? So the 80s kids had Star Wars, Indiana Jones. They made Star Trek the motion picture. That would have been a thing that the 60s kids had for like 5 years. Another thing that was in popular culture, but it was more with teenagers and college kids, this probably would have been in the late 60s or into the 70s, would have been Lord of the Rings, because Tolkien came back. So I just want, so what do the millennials, Zoomers, and Alpha and Beta have? Well, one of the things that seems to have stuck around is Pokemon, but there's no hero or virtue attached to that. You have the 80s heroes, and you have comic books and all this stuff. The 90s into the early 2000s, whenever the first X-Men movie came out, was the beginning of, they like the superhero stuff. I mean, in the 70s, again, 70s, beginning of 80s, they had a Spider-Man TV show in the 70s, wasn't a hit, it went away. The Hulk TV show was more popular. That was a hit for a couple of years. So that was something. So you have a big green monster that's uncontrollable anger and rage. That makes sense that kids would like that. And you have Kiss, which, whatever that is. Ugly guys with hairy chests. And high heels and all this stuff. So we know what has an influence on teenagers. It's music. Whether you want to go back to the 50s and the Bobby Soxers, or, the Elvis movies. What are the things that people saw that had a development on their sensibilities? In the past, what everybody had was their parents' record collection. Your parents are older than you. When you're growing up, you hear the music that they liked. So that becomes the first music that helps you develop your ears. Maybe you have your sing-songs for children. It's a little bit different now. We have access to every generation's music, and they keep making new stuff, and now they program the music to really have an influence. Like, I don't know what Baby Shark or The Wheels on a Bus Go Round and Round does to a children today, but it has something to do with the colors and patterns in Coco Melon, which, oddly enough, they were working on and developing in the 1990s, whenever Pokemon first came out in Japan, because they had to give they had to change Pokemon and give epilepsy warnings, because kids that were epileptic would see the color patterns and stuff and they'd have a fit. And they've made fun of this on the Simpsons. The Simpsons go to Japan and they're watching Pokemon, and then Homer, the whole family spazzes out and they start having seizures, and they're on the floor, you know, comedically rolling around. So there's different influences that the different generations have, and I want to be where I'm going with this is talking about leading us into Hunger Games with like rollerball in the 1970s, and the idea of blood sport setting us up to, you know, like the end point would be Squid Games. So I want to talk about all the spaces in between, but before we get to what the episode is really about, which is the gamification of life, which I should have said up front. It'll probably be in the title somehow. But, so, what did the millennials have to grow up with from things that they pretended to be? Well, you have all superhero stuff. The millennials had Jim Carrey, just as a figure. He was like he was in a lot of things, and kids watched him. Like the way Jack Black is now, Jim Carrey was in everything. And when Jim Carrey first came out, they hated him, and then they loved him for a while. Now they hate him again. Same thing with Jack Black. Jack Black came out, and they like him for a while. Now they're getting sick of him. All right, okay, he's in everything. We don't want to see him anymore. Except that the Minecraft movie's a big hit or whatever. Maybe they love Jack Black. I saw a Justin Wang video, and I'm like, he's got a Jack Black doll in the background. That's lame. Hi, I'm Wang. He's got another video about boogers or farts or somebody's eyeballs or their nuts falling out or whatever. So anyway, not picking on that guy. I watch him. I know who that is, right? I don't watch all of them. Some of them are too gross for me. The gnarly Justin Wang videos. I don't know. So kids have grown up on videos, but the millennials had Jim Carrey and whatever thing he did. They have Pokemon has staying power. That translated down probably into Gen Beta still likes Pokemon, but there's no hero of virtue attached to a Pokemon. It's just a bunch of, you know, demons that you can cockfight each other. They fight each other, and then, you know, you let the demon out of its Pokeball, which is a genie lamp or whatever, let the djinn out of its lamp, and it's whatever. And then they fight each other, and they're cute and they're adorable, but none of them are like a hero. So the millennials are beginning with the superhero stuff, because that's when Spider-Man started. Then they did the Hulk, and they started doing the MCU stuff. They grew up with the Blade and the Ghost Rider. And then, so what is Zoomers, millennials, Zoomers, what do they have? They have all superhero stuff. They brought in, and games, all your characters from games. Whenever Tomb Raider came out, there was men lusting after. She had big jugs. Remember that? She wore short shorts, and she's girl Indiana Jones. So, you know, I'm showing you that the different generations had things that they imitated and role played as children. When Superman was new, like whenever that was invented along by Siegel and Schuster, whoever, a long time ago, kids were hurting themselves because they'd put a towel around their neck and they jumped from too high of a height, and they would hurt themselves. And I had to tell kids, don't do that. You're not Superman. It will hurt. And so Transformers are popular. I don't know if that helped people transition. You know what? I feel like I thought I was a man or a young boy. Now I feel like maybe I'm a sports car or a tractor trailer or a kitty cat girl or what, you know, what have you. I don't know if that's what the influence is. A lot of stuff that's popular now has to do with nostalgia. Like, if you already own an IP and you're like, well, this is something we know people like, let's put a new coat of paint on it and throw it out there again and see if they like it. They're making a He-Man movie. I heard they're going to recast Indiana Jones. They're still holding on to the 80s stuff. The 80s kids had a lot of things. The 60s kids had G.I. Joe and James Bond and whatever else was popular. Too many things to name. But you see how these things have importance on the development of our sensibilities. Other things that millennials had was Fast and the Furious stuff. Because they grew up with those. Because, I mean, the Fast and the Furious movies continued to come out, and that helped create a street racing car culture and all this car shit that just didn't exist before. I mean, yes, there was always some kind of a car culture, and people were into cars as long as, you know, we had the luxury after World War II of all the car stuff. But the Fast and the Furious takes it to another level, putting nitrous in your cars and the MTV Pimp Your Ride and all these things that came out. That's all from Fast and the Furious movies. I want to say Clint Eastwood, but that didn't really have an influence on children. That was like something more for adults from the 70s, the westerns, and then Dirty Harry and all that stuff. It's not really for kids. So what did the millennials and Zoomers have? Games, all the things that pick a game IP or whatever and associate that to it. The 80s also had horror movies and slasher stuff, and you could see it being enculturated. In the 1970s, there was a short story, I think, by Richard Bachman called The Running Man, or a novella or something. Richard Bachman was the ghost name of Stephen King. When Stephen King wanted to write a different type of book that he wasn't sure about and take a risk, he wrote under Richard Bachman, or whatever his reason for it. I'm guessing that would be Stephen King's reason for having Richard Bachman, and he'd write under that name. Why do horror stuff? Or he was focusing on that, so he wanted to do sci-fi, so he did The Running Man. And there's a bunch of Richard Bachman books. I remember reading those in the 1980s because Stephen King became a big hit. Every year they had Stephen King's World of Horror came out, and a lot of people wanted to watch that because you get to see behind the scenes of practical effects. And it was propaganda for horror. Hey, maybe you don't know about this. Maybe you would like to know about horror and gore and violence. Because there was an 80s slasher film. An 80s slasher film was about the final girl, where it was like there was an evil gladiator and he would hunt down teenagers who were fornicating and sinning and stuff, and it was okay to kill them because they were bad. And that was the morals, the light morals and ethics of Jason, Friday the 13th, Michael Myers, which was really a 70s movie. I don't know when the different Halloween movies came out. I guess some came out in the 80s. But anyway, they stayed around. So you have Freddy Krueger, you have Jason, Michael Myers, you have James Cameron's Alien, because Ridley Scott did that one-off Alien movie in the 70s, and then that stayed around. They had Predator and all the Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff. So who was the influence again on 80s kids? Sylvester Stallone with Rocky and Rambo, I guess, because they did have a Rambo children's TV show, which is based on a rated R movie about a guy who was shell-shocked from Vietnam. And then everything Arnold did. So these were the big stars. What was the other thing from the 80s? How could I forget Ghostbusters? The overcoming of the supernatural with science. That's what Ghostbusters is about. And then they had Ghostbusters cartoon. So, you know, Ghostbusters isn't really for kids, but people, they loved it. And they had the cartoons. So 80s kids had all the cool stuff, and they can't let it go. We have all these things now. They still made Ghostbusters movies. They're redoing Running Man without Arnold. I don't know. I think Sylvester Stallone owns Rambo. I don't imagine they'll remake it without him unless he says so. Rocky, they've moved on. Now it's about Rocky's the trainer of Apollo's son or whatever. So they keep these things going. Ghostbusters attached the torch to Paul Rudd and a group of diverse lesbian teens or whatever. I don't watch the new Ghostbusters. But I want to talk about the horror movies and the idea of Final Girl. I want to talk about how slashers movies transitions us into Squid Games. So in the 1970s, you have rollerball, and that was James Caan. Rollerball is essentially the blood sport in Battle Angel Lolita. Remember the Battle Angel Lolita movie? I liked it. It was pretty good. I have a DVD of it from a library. I bought it off of eBay from a library, so it's like a library edition of a DVD. I didn't even know they did these. It's like a heavy-duty version of Battle Angel Lolita with a hard case and everything. It was from the Boston Public Library or something like that. Anyway, enough about me. So Battle Angel Lolita has basically rollerball. It's a blood sport where they do roller derby. Another thing that I think was popular like in the 70s or early 80s was rollerball. Then they tried to bring it back again. Drew Barrymore did a movie with Elliot Page. That poor Elliot. So Ellen Page was in a roller derby movie. Now that's, I don't mean a dead name, somebody, just horribly mentally disturbed person. Isn't that heartbreaking? Do you ever think that she regretted not being in The Last of Us? She's like, I could have been in that, but now I'm a boy. Whatever. That's heartbreaking. That's a person. Like, I can make fun, but that really happened to that poor woman. And one of the things I remember, I'm going to go on an aside for a moment about the Ellen Page stuff. I remember somebody else's video talking about how she had voices in her head about like, and then now she's Elliot Page. Like she was hearing voices in her page because of prescription meds or something, and now she's crossed over from Julian Huxley, crossed over transhuman, crossing over from being, well, whatever she was, a woman, into being what she always was. I guess it's, you know what I mean. That's a horribly disturbed person. It's heartbreaking. So anyway, enough of that. So, so we have James Caan in Rollerball. James Caan was in the Godfather movies. Do people even remember these anymore? The Godfather movies, telling us how Hollywood and politics is run. Blackmail and bribes. That's what the Godfather movies are about. It's about blackmail and bribes. At least the first two. I never saw the third one. So that was a long time ago they made those movies. It was the Godfather movies made in the 70s and then one in the 80s. And then they made the third one in the 90s or whatever. That's how it works. They blackmail and you bribe you. So anyway, back on point. So James Caan was in that. You may remember him from the Wes Anderson film Bottle Rockets, and I don't know what else you would remember him from. I know people still like Wes Anderson. I'm a little bit out of touch, but I know the history. So rollerball is roller derby, but it's blood sport, and you can die in it. And then you go through all the 80s movies of post-apocalyptic or dystopian movies. There was a movie in the 80s, basically like a sort of rip-off of Rollerball starring Rutger Hauer, where he played a one-eyed gladiator. Deadly roller derby, okay? And then you have Running Man, which is a game show, gamification of life where you can actually die. And what I'm purporting, I'll put this in here now, is that they're leading us to a future where we'll say, I got nothing to lose. I'll be willing to risk my life so that people can watch us die. That's the Roman arena. I mean, I have to bring that into it because what they're trying to do is, well, what worked in the past? We'll pacify them with bread and circuses and blood sport. They used to throw people in the Colosseum and have them, they'd starve lions and then have the lions fight people and kill them, whatever other kinds of beasts and creatures, probably like out of Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And they had they'd throw people into the gladiatorial pit and see if they could make it. This is even reflected in what's the second Star Wars movie? There's a Phantom Menace, then there's Attack of the Clones. In Attack of the Clones, they threw Anakin and Padme and whoever else, they threw them into the gladiatorial arena to fight creatures and stuff. Well, they did this for real in the past. That's the Roman. Do you ever see Gladiator? There you go. So, do you ever see 300? Probably history is a lot more like 300, where there was creatures and weird beings and monsters and stuff that were co-opted to be fighters and champions and stuff. As it's turning out, our history is a lot weirder than we thought. So I don't want to get too biblical about it. I want to keep it focused on movies and social engineering and leading us into blood sport. Using technology, like Hunger Games. Like one of the things that the millennials got was, when there were still bookstores, was the genre of teen dystopian sci-fi. It was a novel category. Also, what they got was Twilight. That's for the millennials, right? Even though I know a lot of wine moms and grandmoms like Twilight, because it's like a lurid romance novel type of storyline, right? Isn't Twilight was like 50 Shades of Grey fan fiction, except they made him a vampire, right? That's what the woman said. Stephanie Meyer is the creator of Twilight. This is all coming together. Just stay with me. So Stephanie Myers wrote Twilight, and it was her just, eat me, beat me, fan fiction, 50 Shades of Grey, but she's like, well, I'll make it my own. I'll make him a vampire. And then there was another, Charlene Harris, I think was the author's name, and she came up with the True Blood series, and these are like dirty books made for women. That's all about orgasms and all this kind of stuff, and women, sex stuff, and horny books for women. All right, and now that's popular. What do they call that now? Do they call it slash fiction? What do they call it now? There's this latest version of, we're finding out how perverted women have become, where they're really into all this dirty sex stuff, and it's like way beyond Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. Now it's just, I think it's called slash fiction. I don't even know what it's called, but it's women reading the dirty books. And, well, at least they're reading on a Kindle named after burning books because it's digital. Get it, Kindle, kindling a fire to get rid of digital, to get rid of paper and read digital books, because you can change them. You can just change the file, whether people like it or not. And in the future, no one will own anything, so take away physical media. That's another episode. So, they had The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 1980s, and then you have Predator, Men in the Woods getting hunted down by a beast. You have the slasher film genre, which was popular into the 80s in the VHS revolution. And it was about hunting down and killing young people. Find out who's the fittest. This social Darwinism stuff that Darwin recanted on in his deathbed and said, I was wrong. And then he died. But they kept with it because it was, it's a good tool for, creating a society where the wealthy elite whose fortunes shape the fates of nations want to lead us. We're fodder for the beasts. So you have these demonically possessed beings as the, people possessed of evil as the slashers in name any 80s slasher movie, whether, there's the big popular ones, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, Chucky. Whenever, was that the 80s or 90s? I can't remember. And then just monsters hunting down and killing people. And I can't rack my brain for all of the things that hunted down fornicating teenagers and teenagers filled with lust and all this stuff. And it really was never about giving you morality plays. It was about watch people get chopped up in entertaining ways. That's a gross thing. But that was kind of the point of the horror genre. Like, it's about scaring you, which is probably a bad thing, giving you cortisol and then, giving you dopamine and cortisol and then relieving it. And then maybe the final girl, the idea of the final girl. Wasn't there a TV series called The Final Girl? Right? They're still doing that? And you'd think that one could go on forever. They did the Scream movies. That's a thing for the millennials. So the idea of a slasher film is just about chopping up teenagers. Do you see how that relates to the Hunger Games? And the Hunger Games is a ripoff of a Japanese novella, because it was like a short novel called Battle Royale. And Battle Royale was a hit in Japan, and they made 2 Battle Royale movies. Maybe they made more, but they made 2 Battle Royale movies, and those movies were banned in the U.S. I had to get bootlegs of those movies because I wanted to see them. It has Takeshi beat Takano. I like that guy's movies. Not all of them. Did you ever see Sauna Team? It's pretty good. It's a sad ending though. Spoiler alert. Kikujiro's pretty good. There's a couple things I would edit out of Kikujiro. Kikujiro's my grandfather. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Again, it's Takeshi beat Kitano. They did these Battle Royale movies and they were banned. You couldn't watch them in the US. I think even the bootleg I have, they put a stamp on it that said banned in other countries, or however many countries it was banned in. Then they made the Hunger Games and it was okay to watch Battle Royale. Battle Royale is a pretty grim movie and it's kind of disgusting and I don't like it. I don't recommend it. It's more honest. It's about where the Hunger Games movies are going. Probably my guess is that the Hunger Games movies are more gruesome than they were initially. Like they had to break in the world, like the Western world, to the violence against children of Hunger Games where they're killing each other. But in Japan, that was why they were banned. It was just a bunch of kids on an island with collars on their necks, and if they tried to leave the island, their heads would explode and they'd die. And they had to hunt each other until there was only one left. And the Hunger Games ripped that off. So the lady said she wrote the Hunger Games. She stole it. It's stolen from Battle Royale. There's too many things that are the same with it, but probably in terms of entertainment value, you might like Battle Royale, at least the first one, better. The second one, it's not so great. But the first one is awful and I don't recommend it, but it's probably where the new Hunger Games movies, because they're going to keep making them, are leading. So what did we get with the genre of teen dystopian sci-fi? That Ghastly Crumb Tiny's series of what is it called? The series of unfortunate events. They made a movie with Jim Carrey. Oh, Harry Potter was the other thing. How could I forget about bringing Harry Potter into this? I'm doing a loose, this is all in here. This is coming from, wherever it's coming from. Hopefully something from God. Part of it at least. But Harry Potter, that's a big thing for the millennials into now. Because Harry Potter never went away, because the kids grew up with it and they couldn't escape it. So Zoomers probably have Harry Potter. It didn't take. I have millennials. They weren't into Harry Potter. They weren't into Pokemon. Thankfully. Was another thing that's been around since the 1980s. The popularity of professional wrestling. Then it kind of went away for a little bit, and then it came back popular than ever in the 90s, or the end of the 90s, early 2000s, with the WWE Raw and all the Rock and all those guys. So you have wrestling was another influence on us. Fake gladiators. They write up dramas like violent soap operas that like for women, but it's for men. So to watch this fake drama and the guys have beefs with each other and yell at each other. You have what's one of the things that developed our sensibilities from the 80s, rap, and transforming into hip hop, and rap, gangster rap, hip hop, and that created a whole prison culture. I mean, that whole thing was a psyop. I mean, I'm not the only one to say this, but how many times do you need to see videos from me where I tell you that hip-hop is gay and the N-word is a magic spell, that when you say N-word it makes you lazy? Because if you look up what the N-word meant, it means lazy. Although I heard in some cultures that it means friend or something, but no, they used it to mean you're lazy. And the word was N-wordly. So they would call him, you lazy N-word. So now it's a colloquialism that people have been saying to each other because of the encouragement in prison culture. So use that N-word in music and hear it repeated over and over again, so that when you make music, you think that you have to use it. So I can bring rap into this, what I meant. I wasn't expecting to bring rap into this video, but I can easily because it's enculturating the prison culture. Did you ever hear the idea, we're living on a prison planet, and blah blah blah? Wasn't that one of Alex's old taglines? Used to say prison planet or whatever, wherever he got that from. So yeah, I mean, living in Hunger Games districts and Pan Am, they want to do that. That is there's Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, and then there's the movies. We're going to talk about Ready Player One, the book. We're going to talk about Spielberg directing Ready Player One, the movie, and that's set in 2046. That has the world set up the way that it would be if the checkpoints that they wanted they'd have checkpoints that they want, who the wealthy elite whose fortune shaped the fates of the nation, BlackRock, Bilderberg meetings, all these things. They have things they want done by 2050. So they have a timeline of like, let's try and get these things done by then, and they just keep pushing, like BlackRock said, we're just going to keep pushing. So you have Ready Player One, and the world of Ready Player One is on the timeline for where they want us to be. And then they want to have things completed by 2050. And you also have the movie Blade Runner 2049, which is, just an ass hair away from 2050. So it's the idea that everything's artificial. We have replicants, which are humans born without the womb, artificial womb. No need for, eliminating moms. How many videos? I've done 3 videos so far. Recently, as me making this video about the destruction of women because women have the wombs and all that stuff. And I've talked about it before over the years, but this one I'll get. This is all part of the whole ball of wax of what we're going to talk about here. So let me melt it down into something. So you have Mad Max stuff in the 1980s. You have Cherry 2000. You have all these different movies, like dystopian movies, post-apocalyptic movies, Blade Runner about the future, dystopian future, where you can't tell if things are real anymore. People aren't eating real food. Everything's synthetic. Everything's like that. You have space communism being brought back in the 1990s with Star Trek: The Next Generation, which did have a big influence on people and helped form and shape a lot of sensibilities of a lot of people. And it's space communism. All right, it's a humanist show. Gene Roddenberry was a hedonistic, probably Luciferian, if you look at the symbolism in Star Trek, the motion picture, and all the stuff they do after that. They bring the environmentalism stuff, which was around in the 70s. I remember having a folder that was about environmentalism because it was like a cool, gnarly drawing. And it was a skeleton in a hard hat driving a steam shovel, and he was plowing through the forest. And all the animals were just it's a painting, and all the animals were just being tossed aside. I should look that up on Google image search. I wonder if that exists. It was, I was like, a really detailed drawing, like a nature painting, like they painted every hair on the animals, except that it was just a skeleton plowing through the woods, in a folder for children, for school. So. So there's all kinds of things leading us to. We'll go back to Battle Royale and Hunger Games. What did we get from the genre of teen dystopian sci-fi showing up in a bookstore? Well, I have to mention another genre, which is teen vampire fiction. I guess what that section would have been called. Do you remember these things? I don't know who you are, how old you are. But when there was still bookstores, when there was Borders and Barnes and Nobles, Walden, there used to be Walden books in the 80s, and they transitioned into Walmart, and they're like, we don't care, we don't want books, we don't want people reading shit. We have a magazine section. And coloring books, that's the Walden Mart books. So we have, there used to be bookstores all over the place, used bookstores, buyback bookstores. We still have these things, but it's just not the same as it used to be. But there was Barnes and Nobles, Borders books, before them Walden books, and whatever. I can't think of any other book chains, if there was any. So they had teen dystopian sci-fi and teen vampire fiction, and these were called that. They probably still have these sections of the bookstore. Now they have an additional one that's eclipsed all of them, because probably the most books sold in Barnes and Nobles is manga. It's probably manga novels, because the last time I was in a bookstore, that was a huge section. I'm like, wow, I think there's a bigger, pulp Japanese comic section is what they are, than anything else. And they're probably not cheap. I don't know, what does it cost for a black and white digest of Japanese perversions? Are they, So what came out of this teen dystopian sci-fi genre? Hunger Games. Japan was doing its own thing, Battle Royale. But Hunger Games was popular. So the Maze Runner, the 100, to a lesser degree, Percy Jackson. How many Percy Jackson movies did they make? Just the 2? Because that's about, like making the Greek gods look cool, which are Nephilim, which are angel-human hybrids. Biblically, is what the Greek gods were. It was things that God didn't really want them to be doing, and then they made those people. So, and there's Harry Potter stuff, which is just witchcraft and wizardry and sorcery, which Lord of the Rings made popular. When did Lord of the Rings movies come out? 1999. Made that popular again for a while, until all the 3 Lord of the Rings movies came out. But J.R. Tolkien, not a good guy. Same thing with C.S. Lewis. They made the Narnia movies. I don't know how popular they were, but the Harry Potter stuff we know was a huge hit. It's still around. They're making Harry Potter the streaming series, right? Is that for Netflix, maybe? So we have Harry Potter as it's in Deuteronomy, no witchcraft, no sorcery, no necromancy. Harry Potter does all that stuff, all the stuff that it says in the Bible not to do. That's what Harry Potter goes to school to learn how to do. For kids. So the millennials grew up with this. And I remember when the whole Harry Potter thing was new. And I remember taking the progeny to see Harry Potter. And they were like, they didn't care. So we didn't have to go see any more of them. And it's lame. So... what's wrong with my music? Okay. Sorry, I had a problem with my sound system here. So, yeah, we're not supposed to do that stuff. In defiance of God, we do wizardry and sorcery and witchcraft. But they enculturated it for children. And a woman wrote it, as did Twilight. You see the bringing in all the women stuff. Women can do these things. Women are programming us now, too. It's not just in the old days with like Emily Dickinson or whoever else. The feminism, the women, the rich bitches that were promoting feminism because they didn't want you to have kids. They didn't want the common. You should be like us, but not like us. Like they weren't doing those things. They were telling us not to have families. Not me. I'm a man. But you know what I mean? Like the history of feminism and all that stuff. Now we're in crimson wave feminism because it's getting bloody. It's a mess. It stinks. So think of the other. They have Squid Games was the other thing. I heard that the 3rd season of Squid Games came out and I didn't like it. So this is being enculturated and popularized that we would do something that goes back to 1970s with James Caan in Rollerball. Now probably before then there was some kind of blood sport thing. I don't know what that would have been. Remember the Prisoner show where the guy was a prisoner? That wasn't really about blood sport, but that was kind of about our future. Go look into what the Prisoner is really about if you want to. I don't have a video up on that yet. I don't know if it's pertinent anymore. Well, the idea that Gladiator was a thing. Oh, UFC. How could I not bring UFC into this? UFC was pride fighting, and it came out in, I want to say the late 90s or early 2000s. I'm not sure when Pride Fight had started on TV. And they said, this is too violent. These guys are just pummeling each other and you're watching it. You can hear the dull thuds where they're, I don't know if they're wearing 4-ounce gloves or whatever it was. Remember Tank Abbott and all those guys at Pride Fighting. So then it became UFC. Now UFC is a big thing. There's Joe Rogan. He's the guy that hosts the UFC. And then, you watch Joe Rogan, he tells you how to think. And that's blood sport. It's pugilism, whatever you want to call it. Rocky was a boxer. That was a big hit. But there's a difference between boxing and UFC because you can use all the Jeet Kune Do stuff, all the stuff that Bruce Lee tried to make popular when he was alive. He lived to the ripe old age of 32 or 33. and he was trying to combine any kind of fighting styles, and that was what he called his Jeet Kune Do style. Well, now that's just UFC. And we have women's UFC. And where are we going? Well, the Squid Games is getting us to Bloodsport. Mr. Beast has the Beast Games, which people were complaining. Squid Games didn't take care of us. A lot of people in the Squid Games got hurt. Got frostbite, or all the stuff that happened to them. Maybe there was some casualties. I don't know if people died during Squid Games shooting or whatever. But the Beast Games is like another step. I mean, I don't know how popular it is, but they put a lot of money into it, right? So the Beast Games, people are having the same complaints that they have with the Squid Games. We're in this contest, and there's too many people, and they can't manage them all. And people are getting hurt, and they're being mistreated, and they're not being fed, and we're given a bottle of water or whatever it is. I'm not dismissing it, but it's trying to get everybody used to this idea of gamification of life. We already have games. We already have the guys where we already have like Columbine, where the kids went out and pew pew, and we keep having these people come out, so much so that they're not even all being given huge media attention. Now there is propaganda to take our arms away from us, but like if you live in a place where everybody has arms and they don't, like, it's a deterrent from crime. But if you have like people who are going to be criminals anyway, because this element of people exists, where they're like, well, these people can't defend themselves, let's go prey upon them. But like if you live in an area where there's like lots of churches and shooting ranges, probably crime will be less. Is it fair for me to say that? Is it even accurate? It might be true. Where people like the police department. I know people will say bad things about the corruption of police departments. It's true in some places, but for some people, the cops are their neighbors, and they know those guys, and the cops know the people that this is a deliberate effort. Like if you want to break down society into Hunger Games districts, get rid of the cops and make the military stupid. Or to take funding away. Look at all the bad stuff they did to the military. That's a whole other video. So they want us to fight each other. Authorship for New World Order said a series of small-scale conflicts at all levels, and even within inside oneself. That's the BetterHelp.com. This idea that, well, maybe you should talk to somebody. Maybe there's something wrong with the way you think when you weren't really thinking about that. But now they want everybody doped up and pilled up. Maybe the world's becoming stressful and full of anxiety. Don't do anything about it. Don't, we the people get together to change anything about it. Take drugs. You're paranoid. It makes me think of I had a cheating girlfriend, and she said, you have an inferiority complex. Do you think I'm cheating on you? She was cheating on me like the whole time, and she lied about it. She tried to put a complex on me. I was waking up screaming, having nightmares, calling her a whore and everything. And she would wake me up and she's like, you're doing it again. And she tried to get me on sleep aids. She tried to dope me up. She's like, maybe you need melatonin. Maybe. I said, listen, if the problem is I'm having nightmares, I don't want to be trapped in my nightmares that I can't wake up. She just wanted me to shut up because she couldn't get any sleep because I'm laying next to bed shacked up with somebody who's cheating on me. And I kept dreaming about it because I was in the spiritual realm, and in my dreams I knew that I was being cheated on. And then I didn't find out that I'd been cheated on over like the course of a year. I didn't find out till I saw the phone bills. And I was like, who the hell's this number? And it was the guy that she was calling all the time because he was cheating on me for over the course of a year. And so anyway, they want us to live in Hunger Games districts. I've done videos where I talked about reintroducing megafauna, competitive megafauna that would like hunt us down so that we would stay out of places where we could go to hunt. That would make it more difficult for us. Whatever they're doing by releasing outbreak monkeys and alpha genesis monkeys and stuff. All over the country, these stories have been popping up. And last year was a big year for the story of, I don't know if they're trying to make Planet of the Apes or whatever. Is that some kind of predictive programming where they're going to like try and make us sick and blame it on monkeys escaped from the lab? I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even want to get into that. But the point is, they want to make it harder for man to survive. I did a whole episode on that kind of stuff, like destroying food production facilities, so that they can push us into a thing where the younger generations have grown up with do witchcraft, wizardry, magic, and sorcery against God's will, because he said don't do those things, and be willing to go back to the Colosseum and the arena and all the movies, Hunger Games, Battle Royale, Maze Runner, The 100, Squid Games, and all these competitions they do where they do gross stuff online. And in the 80s, in Japan, they had the Ninja Eliminator Challenge, and that became popular here in America in the 2000s, right? But in the 80s, they had a thing called American Gladiators, which was basically like a TV-friendly version of Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie Running Man, which is based on the Richard Bachman book, and Richard Bachman is Stephen King. And Stephen King's a weirdo who's one of our programmers. And look at all the disgusting the clowns. Think about how people think about, if you know about this from watching my videos or videos you may watch, the idea that the clowns are Nephilim, and that there's a weird history of clowns, and that kids are naturally disturbed by clowns and adults don't like them. Everybody loves a clown. I don't. Remember that song? People don't like clowns. And then what's the monster from it? It's a clown, but really it's not a clown. It's some kind of demon, but it looks like a clown. And it kills children. So it's, again, this idea of a horror movie creature killing children. And in it's a clown, and that was a popular thing in the 90s. They made the made-for-TV movie, and then they made the two movies, which were popular with all the Stranger Things stuff. And then now they have the Terrifier. And the whole selling point of the Terrifier is that it's so... I've never seen one of these movies, but the Terrifier is so disgusting, it's vominous or whatever. And he's some kind of creepy clown. And that's, that's what people see the cosmic... He looks more like a cosmic jester when people take DMT and have drug trips. And they go into these other realms. Because there are realms and principalities and all these other things. There's other places. There's corporeal and incorporeal world, and when we take drugs, we're blurring the boundaries between corporeal and incorporeal. So that's where people see the clowns and the cosmic jesters and the checkerboard floors and all this stuff. That's their territory. They're mapping out weird lands for us. If I may go into this as a weird route, but it's still applicable to all this stuff. So it's the idea of glorifying the villains that prey upon us. I'm sure the Terrifier kills everybody. I heard in this movie that they do horrible things to children. I think there was a more recent Hunger Games. It was like a Hunger Games prequel they made, and it had the girl that was in Snow White. The girl played Snow White that everybody hates. And she was in Hunger Games, and I saw a review of it. I think it was Double Toasted. Do you know who that is? So I watched the Double Toasted review, like years ago, I think, of the Hunger Games with Rachel Zegler. That's the Snow White girl. And in that movie, he said that there was violent kills of kids, and he was surprised that they didn't hold back on having children die violent deaths, or preteens or whatever. And I was like, that's disgusting. But it was like one of the few things that reviewers said that they liked about the movie. Like, I can't believe they didn't hold back on killing kids, but people said that they kind of liked it, which is disgusting to me and pretty grim. That's where our temperaments have gone, that people will be willing to watch this and think it was a cool thing. Oh, did you see the Hunger Games where they killed the kids? Well, I mean, that's what the Hunger Games is about right from the first one with Jennifer Hunger Games, right? That's what I always call her, because that's who she is. She's Jennifer Hunger Games. Remember the fappening and all that stuff? Yeah, that one. So... yeah, I mean, it's enculturating the idea of children in blood sport, which is just sacrifice and old ball worship. Throw the kids in the pit. I mean, I'm sure that I'm not sure about it, but they probably threw children in the gladiatorial pit in ancient Rome. I mean, they did, remember the three youths? This is biblical. The three youths were thrown into the belly of Baal. It was like some kind of fire pit. But an angel of the Lord, or God himself, sent the angel or something like that, and the kids didn't burn, so they kept throwing the kids in the fire, and they wouldn't burn, so they just found some other way to kill the kids. But that's what they used to do. There'd be statues of Baal with its hands out. Baal means a bullhead. I think there might have been a family of people that had horns. This is for real. And they were the Baals, because in the Bible it's referred to as the Baals. So I think it may have been like a lineage or a family that were horned people because of the weird sex with doing things that were abominable to God. And that the Baals were leaders and worshipped. But anyway, we know about Baal. It's a bull-headed god, all right? So they make statues of Baal, and people would put their babies, and they'd do real-life child human sacrifice. They'd be statues that had fire in there, making them really hot, and people would put their babies on the hands of Baal to sacrifice their child, and it would smell like bacon, because the people who run crematoriums say they hate the smell of bacon because that's what a human body smells like when it's burning. So imagine, somebody being an infant being sacrificed to Baal, and it smells like bacon. So isn't it weird that they made us like bacon, which is also a meat in the Bible that they told us not to eat? No pigs. They said don't eat pork. And even in the New Testament, Jesus, the demons said, don't send us to they said send us into the swine or whatever. So Jesus cast the legion of demons out of this man, and they went into the swine because as he commanded them to, and then he drowned the pigs so that they died. Nobody could eat them because you're not supposed to eat stuff by drowning or whatever. I don't know, maybe some people ate the Bible pigs that got drowned by God himself. So I don't know what happened to those people. That's not commented on in the Bible. But anyway, the point is don't eat pork. But even more so, the point is that it's about child human sacrifice again. They want us to sacrifice our kids up, and they want the kids to be willing to sacrifice themselves up. Look at all the violent, dangerous stuff that was this breakdown of society, psyop or agenda that they have, where in the 1990s they put, well, CKY was its own thing. It was a bunch of kids got camera and they got in trouble with it. So that's Bam Margera and CKY and all that fun stuff. But then they took it on MTV, and they took it to take it away from Bam Margera. I guess they turned it into Jackass. So people saw it like Monkey See, Monkey Do. What had an influence on the 90s kids, or kids, whatever generation it is, Gen X, young millennials or whatever. I don't know how long Jackass went on. It's probably like 2 years or something. But, they made the movies and everything into the 2000s. And they made Jackass 4 under lockdowns, and it sucked. So it's people willing to risk their lives. I remember reading the back of the Jackass DVD compilation of all the MTV episodes, and it said, it's the end of the world. And then they went into the whole spiel about why Jackass was like, end of the world party, carpe diem, seize the day, for tomorrow we may die type of thinking. And that is the mindset that MTV picked up on, because MTV is a programming tool for the teenagers, right, through music. So they wanted to, they're programming our kids. And then what happened to MTV? It became reality show channel, and now we watch reality show. So what else do we have that wasn't just for children but for everyone? We have Survivor. And they're still doing seasons of Survivor. They have all these reality shows. The Bachelor, making a marriage and finding a mate for life into a game show. The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Temptation Island. Just go into all these reality shows. The lives of rich, bored people, the Kardashians. Every time I hear Kardashians, it makes me think of Star Trek, because in Star Trek there's a race of people called the Cardassians. So when I said the Kardashians, I said, what, Star Trek? I just want you to know I'm not a humanist, by the way. I consider it a dirty word. I'm a follower of Jesus, if you didn't know that already about me. I'm not of this world. That's why I hate everything. It's not for me. I'm in the world, but not of it. That's why I was always like that. I didn't like video games. Whatever everybody likes that, I don't like it. You could say that's a contrarian, but I think a contrarian is a dirty word for somebody who senses that something's wrong, and really what they needed to do was find God, and then they find out that, I'm not a contrarian. I'm just not of this world. I'm in it, but I'm not of it. Even though I get all caught up in it and stuff, and I watched a lot of dirty videos, and sex made a big impression on me. Hey, you know, that's how they got to me with the sex stuff. I was having it. I had a girlfriend, my first girlfriend, she's like, watch this, and she showed me all the things. And she's like, no, do it like this. And I became preoccupied with sex. That's how they got me. It wasn't video games, it wasn't movies or TV so much, even though like I have my own Blockbuster video, and I don't watch anything. But I know about the programming. I've seen so much programming. And yeah, I mean, the idea of gamification of life, where the kids go out and they, or whoever it is, encouraging people to go out and treat life like a first-person shooter. This is being encouraged. There's movies that have come out that I can't remember the titles of over the last several years. I think one of them had Harry Potter himself. Wasn't he in like a gamification of life where he was being hunted down? You know, it was like he was in some kind of game where they were hunting him down, and it was on TV and stuff. There's been like several movies of this within the last 10 years where it's like public blood sport. There's also the Truman Show, the idea that everything in your life is being watched, only we sacrifice ourselves up to do that. You see how this whole soup, how it's all leading us to the thing where maybe you want to take a chance. Like, it's hard for everybody. If you can survive the blood sport, then you'll be given all the games and prizes. Hunger Games. But they want you to sacrifice yourself up. The Hunger Games is the idea that Katniss sacrifices herself. They want to put her sister in the Hunger Games, and she says, no, I'll do it, I'll volunteer. And then everyone dies, and they kill the cute little black girl, and they kill all her friends and everything. And then her boyfriend is called Beta. I mean, her boyfriend is called PETA. You might as well just call the guy Beta, because that's one of the first things like you see like that, because people saw the Hunger Games and they weren't onto the programming that was being thrown at us. And then George Miller did it excellently with Furiosa, because a lot of people didn't notice that it was all this feminist stuff. The Crimson Wave feminism was starting with George Miller in the Hunger Games and all this stuff. But in the Hunger Games, Katniss basically takes care of PETA, and she's strong and she does everything, and she has this boyfriend that's a wimp, and he gets sick and he catches a cold, and then they mind wipe him, and he tries to kill her, and so that you don't really like him. That was the beginning of all that stuff, making the man seem like a superfluous appendage. And maybe you could take it back further than me, but that's when I noticed, I'm noticing it now rather, that was one of the first instances of like, yeah, like they might as well just called the guy Beta. They called him PETA. I'm just saying, like, it's just one, if you put a loop on the bottom of the P, it's a B. I mean, how more transparent can you be? Beta! Remember that guy? He's still around. He didn't get married yet. Jesse Lee Peterson never find a wife. Imagine waking up to that guy. Your love is the devil's love. Anyway, back. So the idea of gamification of life. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That wasn't a hit. I mean, now it's kind of become like a cult classic. I guess, because people appreciate it now. But when it came out, it didn't make any money, and it wasn't a hit. And I blame that on Michael Cera not being like a handsome guy that teenage girls could latch onto. Because if he was, then that movie would have been a hit. Is my theory on that. But anyway, the whole point of Scott Pilgrim was it's about gamification of life, because even the little aspects of their life, they think about it like a game. I also remember the first time hearing that The Big Bang Theory was the #1 show on TV, and I literally didn't believe it. I was like, the show where all the guys, hi Sheldon, and everybody talks like that, and it's annoying, like everybody's voice is, because they're all nerds and they talk in a way that's grating, and that's the #1 show. Well, yeah, that's all the superhero stuff, gaming. It's the suspended adolescence, the conquering infant that Aleister Crowley wanted to herald in with the Age of Horus. And this is suspended adolescence, which is not a new thing. I think it has something to do with the American or Western, whatever, Prussian schooling system, the keeping people in a world of toys and games, Well, you can see it's like near perfection and shaping and stuff on The Big Bang Theory. But what about Nerdronic? You know who that guy is? He's a nerd and he's a moron. He's Nerdronic. I'm just kidding. But he sits in a room full of toys. That's his collection of toys. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff in there. But you know, like that's the thing. Like that's part of his identity is he liked Doctor Who and all the things and all superhero stuff. And he had comic book shop. You know about Nerdronic. Okay. So that's what's been done to us. I'm not picking on the man, you know what I mean? It's good that he should expose the BS and the propaganda of movies. Somebody has to get the attention for that. He's the one that gets the hits. He appeals to lots of people. But I had no idea that The Big Bang Theory would appeal to so many people. It was the #1 show. It had 12 seasons, if not more. I think it was 12 seasons. And I hate it. But that would be the #1 show, it means that people became like that. And then Pixar did that movie WALL-E where it's the future and everyone goes around in Crocs and pajamas and they're fat and they don't do anything. Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people go to the store in pajamas and Crocs. I see people wearing Crocs all year round. And that's the Idiocracy wardrobe. Remember that Mike Judge made a movie and it was coming out when Bush was trying to get elected or re-elected? I can't remember. It was like 2008 or whatever that came out. So they kind of downplayed Idiocracy, but that was where they were heading us. Like Mike Judge, you know, probably read a lot of the same things that you or I might have been familiar with. And it's just about dumbing down society where people... You know, everything's automated. It's done by machines. People are stupid. Think about Gen Alpha and Gen Beta shitting their pants and that they can't read. And then think about the Idiocracy. The movie Idiocracy, the Mike Judge movie. Where everybody's dumb. And they also have the gladiatorial arena where the guy who's the president was the guy who survived the Hunger Games. President Shonuff or whatever his name was. Do you remember that? I think it was Terry Crews played the president. Am I wrong about that? Or was it Zeus? I can't remember who played the president in that. Or Vin Rames. I can't remember. It's one of those guys. And he was a guy who was an adult film star, and he was also a gladiator in the gladiatorial games in the arena of Idiocracy, which is the remnants and the breakdown of our society where people are stupid, they don't remember history, everybody drinks Gatorade and they don't know how to grow food and everything is fast food and everybody is wearing plastic scrubs and Crocs and nobody, you know, and they're wearing pajamas and Crocs. That's how people dress in the future. And it's like, sucks. A very funny movie though, go watch Idiocracy, you know, it's funny. But they're leading us towards that. And that's the idea of a perfectly managed system. But you can see like the other stuff, they want to bring in the smart cities. That's all the fires and stuff. Whoever started them, it doesn't matter. They do a city, this is the facts. They do a city planning meeting for a smart city, and then things burn down. So I don't want to hear any bullshit what anybody says. That's the order of things. That's what they did. They did it in Hawaii, and then what do you know? Fires in Hawaii. They did it in California, and what do you know? Fires in California, and they cancel everybody's insurance preemptively so that they can't collect on it. The writing's on the wall. They want to build a new society. They want to build a brave new world. And in the brave new world, people are stupid, and they're hatched, not born, which is like Blade Runner with the replicants, and people grown in baggies and all this stuff and cloning and all this. Like, we don't need people. You don't need a mom. We have Lenina in the hatcheries. And they want the kids to be willing to lay down their lives for games and prizes. Get everybody playing games. I mean, like, even people of my generation, I would go to barbecues and the kids and the grandkids are playing video games with their grandpas and their dads. And sometimes the moms now. But that's what happened. Like, everybody plays games. It's a world of games and toys and amusements, and it's entertainment. And by definition, the word entertainment means to near or to hold or to amuse or divert or distract, but also to program. Our entertainment programs us how to think. And the easiest way to see that is what I've been talking about the whole time. Kids, when you're growing up, you role play stuff, and whatever you see, you imitate. You like basketball, you imitate basketball. I had a millennial, and they saw Space Jam, so they imitated. They didn't want to play basketball professionally. They just wanted to slow motion shoot baskets in their Little Tykes hoop and pretend that they were shooting hoops, and I guess hanging out with Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies or whatever. Maybe I shouldn't let them do that, but that was part of the Space Jam was part of the programming of the millennials. So now you can look at the stuff, the programming of Zoomers. I guess you could, all the video game stuff. Mario, they made the Mario Brothers movie. Minecraft. They had child labor laws so that kids couldn't work in the mines to make it better. And now we have the kids online in the mines. Remember my Minecraft movie videos? They said they got the kids working in the mines again, but they love it. In the future, you'll own nothing and you'll love it, is what they're telling us. I hope they don't get their way. I pray against it. I pray against them every day. I pray for the destruction of BlackRock and all these things. And that the salvation of souls for those who can be saved and for those who can't be saved. Open the pit, Lord. Send them down alive into hell. That's an assaulter. Let them be food for the jackals. Because he knows who he can get through to or not. Or maybe, somebody could surprise him. We have free will. But, God knows, God knows. So we're to love our neighbor as ourselves, and it's hard when they're killing us. We're supposed to pray for our enemies when they're persecuting us and killing us, because it's heaping coals on their heads. That's part of it. But also there might be a chance for them to be saved, because the devil's evil, and look at what he does. He wants us to offer up children to him just because it grieves God. All right? He's evil. What is evil? Child sacrifice is evil. Planned Parenthood is child sacrifice. Taking aborted people, aborted children, and having them cut up for parts so that genomics can turn it to flavor enhancement, so they can do useless research, useless research and experimentation that need not be done. So they want people to get used to Hunger Games, so that's where you can see them pushing us towards this violence and blood sport in the arena as the short season, comes to its like fever pitch or whatever you want to call it, where they're trying to head us. What role do you and I play in this? Prayer, I would say, prayer and the choices that we make in deciding not to choose evil, not to look at pornography, or to not be programmed. If we see the programming, that when we see these things, we recognize that it's programming, and that we are disgusted by our movies and TV shows, which has happened. The TV and movies and streaming, all these things, and even gaming, is so transparently propaganda. They don't care. And everybody hates it. People hate it, and the kids don't like it, but they just want it to be there for the kids. So what did you have? It's all you got. And they want to remake everything. So whatever you liked that had a hero of virtue in it, not to say that Indiana Jones was ever a hero of virtue, but he was still, more of a good guy than, I don't know, Freddy Krueger or whatever. But they don't want anybody to have the idea of a hero of virtue. They want everything to be ugly. They don't like beauty. It's about the destruction of beauty. It's about postmodern deconstruction of everything. These are tools of communism and socialism so that they can mold and shape people how they want. So all of this stuff is still everything that I've talked about this whole episode is all about attacks on youth to degrade man to the point where you have Huxley's what they call Epsilon class, which is the lowest class in the Brave New World, because now we say alpha, we say sigma, alpha, beta, delta, gamma. Like in Brave New World, beta is not such a bad position, but in this world it sucks, and everybody knows that you want to be a beta cuck. Yeah, well, this also has to do with caste system, gamification of life, and they want to make people stupid. They want to keep them down there. So they're programming the children to be stupid, being addicted to tablets. The idea that a 4-year-old knows how to scroll on a phone. I've seen 4-year-olds doom scrolling shit they shouldn't see on TikToks, and I'm like, I had to take the phone away from a kid, and I gave it to their parent. Actually, I gave it to their grandparent. I said, you can't let them have this phone. It was a 4-year-old kid, and they were doom scrolling, and I saw some like pretty raw shit, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be seeing that. So I said, come over here, forget about that. And I distracted the kid, and I gave the phone. I said, don't let them have grandpa's phone, because they're seeing shit they couldn't see. So I started telling the grandma, I said, here's what they saw. And I'm not even going to say it, but it's inappropriate for a 4-year-old to be seeing. And the kid was saying, oh, this is scary. I was like, yeah, you're not supposed to be watching that shit. Don't let the kid have a phone. But you've seen the TikTok compilations, I know I have, where they can't take the tablets away from the kids and they go crazy, and then the parents just give up because the parents are degraded and weak, and they're like, I just want the kid to stop because I'm looking at my device and I want them to be quiet, so they give them the tablet back. I've already told like several times in my more recent episodes how there was I guess this would be a Gen Alpha or Gen Beta kid, and somebody was telling me that they we don't let them have the tablet all the time, but they go to sleep with the tab. They look at the tablet to go to sleep, and they watch kiddie stuff. That's a terrible idea. Television, the cathode ray tube, put you in a hypnagogic trance that you couldn't snap out of I think it was like 20 minutes after you watched television. Now we have these LED screens. We have the epileptic seizures that are caused by the colors of things today. We have, look up videos called Coco Melon is Evil, and they explain, I don't know if I said that when I brought up the Simpsons and the different colors and things, but what I meant to say with that, to come back to that from the beginning of this video, this episode if you will, was that Coco Melon knew that they could use colors to keep kids entranced in watching Coco Melon, and that they would throw a fit if you turned it off. So that's why Coco Melon was evil. And one of the good things I did see was that I saw a garbage can full of all this Coco Melon stuff, and I was like, I wonder if that's because they saw a Coco Melon is Evil video, so they took it all away from their kids. Or maybe their kids were just outgrew Coco Melon. I don't know. But I remember seeing it, driving by and seeing it in the trash. And I was like, look at all the Coco Melon stuff. Because I know what that looks like. I'm a grandpa. And, yeah, I mean, Coco Melon is evil. Like, they know that they're putting stuff that keeps, it's so hyper stimulating that the kids, like, can't look away from it. And did you ever see kids flipping out because they turn Coco Melon off? Yeah, well, it's probably not just Coco Melon. It's probably a lot of things. The effect that a tablet has on hypnotizing children. They're young, they're impressionable. Have you ever heard the idea that a kid's a sponge and they soak stuff up? They imitate what they see, just like they did before there was the internet. But now we have a monitor in front of us, and it's a powerful programming tool. And it's also a way to bum out the world through the internet. Have people watch videos and have them think a certain way, and then promote those things which get you to think the way that Bilderberg, BlackRock, wealthy elite whose fortune shaped the fates of nations. Make those things popular. That's why Disney keeps plowing through with stuff that nobody likes. Oh, we like the old Little Mermaid, we like the old whatever movie, and they remake it, and people are like, yeah, it's just, we don't like it. We like the old Aladdin, so they make the live action Aladdin with Will Smith, and people are like, we don't care about Princess Jasmine is an independent woman or whatever, and they don't like it. It doesn't matter. They just keep hammering this stuff through so that that's what the kids grow up have. So what do Gen Alpha and Gen Beta have to grow up with? Well, the only stuff, and it's all bad news from the start, all they have is old stuff that their parents and grandparents, and in some cases probably great-grandparents might have grown up with. Old media, physical media. That's why they want to take all this stuff away. That's what they want to say, in the future you'll nothing and you'll love it. Because they only want the younger coming up generations to live in the world that they created for them to live in. And that's why Kylo Ren said, honestly, destroy the past, kill it if you must. They're killing the past. What's the canon of this, the Western canon? Well, it used to be books, now it's movies and TV and franchises. So they're destroying all these things across the board. Games, they have to rewrite, they're rewriting history in front of our eyes. and trying to push that old stuff away. Oh, it's misogynist. It's all bad. We'll give you the new versions of the things. It's like when the Chinese government took the Panchen Lama away. Dalai Lama was looking for the reincarnation of his buddy. It's bullshit. And then they found the new Panchen Lama as a little boy. And then the Chinese government said, no, you can't have him. And the Chinese government took the Panchen Lama away, and then you never saw him again. And then the Chinese government said, here's your officially sanctioned Buddhist Panchen Lama. And they gave him another kid. This kid's your Panchen Lama. We're taking this one. So whatever the Buddhists were looking for in the reincarnation of Dalai Lama's buddy, the Chinese government just took in and squashed it. That's a weird thing that I would bring into this, but I'm just saying, like, it's just, no, you'll have what we give you, is the point of me bringing that up. So that's what they're doing. And the programming we're getting through movies and TV, you can see the degradation of to Hunger Games, is what I'm saying. And you have James Caan Rollerball, or maybe even Westworld. What came first, Westworld or Rollerball? I don't know. So anyway, so you have Rollerball, which is blood sport. So you have the Roman Colosseum going all the way back in history. You have Rollerball in this blood sport movies. If there was any others from the 70s, I'm not aware of them. You have the horror movie genre, slasher movies. You have Running Man, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then you have, Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers, RoboCop's Idea of the Future, again, Paul Verhoeven. Running Man, I think, is Paul Verhoeven too, isn't it? That's maybe an underappreciated director. He's also a guy that gave us Showgirls. Again, like, the guy has a sense of humor, and he's a solid director. But Starship Troopers was about mocking fascism, but people saw it and they thought it was cool. They didn't even realize that it was a joke on fascism through, was it a Heinlein book or something? Where in the movie, Doogie Howser says, or Neil Patrick Stewart, whatever his name is, the gay guy from How I Met Your Mother. And he said, they have fear. So how did they defeat the bugs in Starship Troopers? By using fear as a weapon against them, because they didn't know if the bugs feared. So they're using fear as a weapon against us, and they're trying to dull us down to get used to the idea of, we'll watch Hunger Games, we'll watch them kill kids. They're trying to enculturate that so that it actually can be done. I mean, Tim and Eric even had a sketch on that. Maybe this video is pretty long, but maybe I could get away with tacking part of that onto the end of this, or maybe just the whole thing to let me do it. I don't know, YouTube will stop it or whatever. But Tim and Eric made, like, in their style, you know what I mean, with all animation stuff, and you know what I mean, in that weird Tim and Eric style. They did a future game show where everybody just gets chopped up and dies, and it's really not funny. But even they had their little comment on where the future is going, on this idea of blood sport, like technology mixed blood sport and stuff. And again, it's in Battle Angel Alita, which they didn't, it wasn't a hit or whatever. But everybody that saw it said it was pretty good. And they handled the idea that a girl could be tougher and do everything because she's a robot kind of is, like, you can believe it more. But I'll tell you, some of the, like, when they make the propaganda, when it's done right, it's subtly influencing. But a lot of it's just been like a hammer over the head. Like, Disney doesn't know how to be subtle, and they're not. The point is, like J.J. Abrams said with The Force Awakens, before that came out, he said, we're going to make a lot of you guys uncomfortable. You might not like the things we do, because he knew what they were doing. The whole point is to make us uncomfortable with our programming. It's about destruction of the culture. So everything I've talked about is about getting, the whole course of this video is about getting Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, and to some degree the Zoomers, to just go along with whatever they say. So they're not really giving them heroes or anything to latch onto. They have influencers. There's no hero of virtue. It's just people who are objectionable that make content. And what is most of the content online? Is it inspiring, uplifting? Not really. It's competitive. It's judgmental. It's complaining. It's harboring fear. Like even a lot of the Christian stuff is about fear at the end of days and fear mongering. So it's fear mongering. It's dopamine and cortisol, and it's having you back and forth. And when you're burnt out from that, well, they have the drugs. They have the pharmaceutical pharmakeia of all these, same of drugs you can take, or you can vape. You can, you can have the legal dope. You can get a weed card. Just be high all the time. Be drunk all the time. Be on prescription drugs. Mix all these things, and forget about it. And just stay asleep. Stay asleep like the John Carpenters. They live, right? So, yes, they're trying to program us, and you can see how it's taken effect. But even still, there's something of us, of God, that rejects this stuff. And everybody has an opinion, and everybody's online. So whether it's through tweets, or Instagram posts, or TikToks, or YouTube videos, or, Rumble, I forget Rumble. But whatever platform it is on social media, there's all these different ways. You can make a meme, picture, GIF. You can make tweets of words. You can do pictures, all the things you can do on all different platforms is the point. And everybody's complaining about it because they hate everything. And they're like, yeah, we know it sucks and we know it's the message, but they just keep making it. It's not for the people complaining about it. It's just to get used to it. Like BlackRock was saying, just get used to it, just get used to it, just get used to it. In the meantime, people are growing up in this, and they're shitting themselves and they can't read. At least in the West. I don't know what it's like for the rest of you. I don't know. Most of my views come from America. I'm probably not allowed to be seen outside the States. Probably definitely not in Canada. So, and look what they're doing in Canada. Look what's happening all over the world. Look what happened to France. Look what happened to the UK. Look what happened to London, England. And it's awful, and it's evil, and it's by design. George Orwell's 1984 with cameras everywhere. Alan Moore writing The Watchmen with cameras everywhere. And look at London. Look at the cameras in London. It is nuts. Weather manipulation, all these things. Anyway, it's all just... I'm not trying to, do not fear, do not become dispirited. Develop a relationship with God, and you'll be able to talk about this stuff, and the fear goes away. I know that a lot of times the stuff that when I was hearing about this stuff in the early 2000s from my friends that were smarter than me, at least one of them, and he would say all this stuff, and I kind of believed him, but I didn't want to hear about it, and I'm like, you're freaking me out, like, stop. And but it takes time to get used to it so that you don't fear it anymore. I guess in a way it's about being desensitized, but I mean, developing a relationship with God I would highly recommend, because just because they planned all these things for like over 100 years doesn't mean they have to get their way. Foul spirits have been plotting and planning for a long time to manipulate man, and God says, no, they'll come around to me anyway. Well, no matter who you or I are, we don't know who we are. I mean, in the grander scheme of things. But, prayer and asking God for help helps. You can pray for other people. You can pray for the state of the world. And that's the one thing that the wealthy elite whose fortune shaped the fates of nations don't want you to do. They don't want you to ask help from the right place. They don't want you to ask for help from the right... They don't want you to ask God for help. You can believe in all your other nonsense stuff, in your pantheon of Hindu demons, and the Lao Tzu, and the analects of Confucius, or, philosophers throughout history, or be like, off with Islam or fake Israel and all that, all that kind of stuff. But they don't want you to ask Jesus for help. And why? I'll quantify it with this, which I've said many times, so if you know where I'm going with this, I'm sorry I'm doing it again. Sleep paralysis, you call out Jesus. Nightmares and bad dreams, you call out Jesus. You wake up, they go away. Bad drug trips, you call out Jesus for help. There's so many testimonies online and stuff. People having alien abduction nightmares, and they just call out Jesus and they go away. People having near-death experiences, having experience of falling down into hell, screaming Allahu Akbar, and it's not saving them, and calling out for Vishnu or Ganesh, and it's not helping them. But then their guardian angel or somebody saying, say Jesus, and then they say Jesus, and they come back and they convert to being a Christian, because that's who God is. And even the Christians are getting it wrong. There's a lot of trouble, the Christians being led astray, but at least they know who it's Jesus. He said, before you didn't say my name, now say it. And when we say it, it helps us. So do not underestimate the power of prayer. And the more you develop a relationship with God by reading the Bible and talking to God as your therapist, I guess you could say, and the fear goes away. What you should fear is God. It's Isaiah 11:2 where it says, Lord, give me wisdom, understanding, might, your counsel, maybe a couple of other things. And then it says, and that I would delight in the fear of you. I know about the fear of the Lord. I've said it years ago, before I really understood about God, or before I had read the Bible. I said there's nothing worse that could happen to you than that God would reject you. Like, that's the scariest thing, that God exists and that he would reject you. Well, if you watch my video this far in, probably, God is, you're on a better track than one of God rejecting you. That you would listen to me say all these things. So ask God for help. I know some people say, I tried the God thing and it didn't work. Try it again until it sticks. Because I'm going to keep throwing God at you until it sticks to you. Because that's what you need. And if you have God in your life already, great. Develop that relationship. It's the most intimate, personal relationship that you could ever possibly have with anyone. You have a direct line to the most advanced technology ever available. You have a direct access to the most advanced technology that's ever going to be available to us. And that you can talk to the maker and creator of all things. Establish friendship with God, because they're trying to get us into Hunger Games districts, and they don't want us to hunt. They won't want us to eat meat because the environment and climate lies and all this climate change lies, which is just geoengineering stuff. They're using technology to change our weather. Go look up the video on NASA Cloud Machine. Maybe I have to do another one. But they want us to live like that. They want us to live horribly, like godless heathen animals that they just push around, and then they want us to keep their world going the way they want it. They're being puppeted and controlled and manipulated by demons. They have demons in them. This is the wealthy elite whose fortune shaped the fates of nation. The Council of 300, the class of 6,000 social engineers, BlackRock, Bilderberg meetings, all these people. Diddy. People are knowingly and willfully doing evil for whatever their reasons or motivations are. It's the influence of incorporeal evil on their lives. And, prayer is the one thing that we have as a weapon against that. So where was I going with this? There's something else I wanted to say. Well, anyway, call your father, Planet Daddy issue. I say that all the time. It's the one issue that we all have to set ourselves right with God. That's why I say Planet Daddy issue, call your father. Nobody escapes this. It's about relationship to God. And all these people that are doing the evil against us they're not in 100% control. We still, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just a foregone conclusion that evil's won. Just because they plan these things for so long doesn't mean they have to get their way. And one of the things that puts cracks and tears and slows down their plans is prayers to God. So, you could never be closer to anyone than God, because God is everywhere present and filling all things. And even more so, or deeper, is that God's love permeates all things. He made everything with love. That's why it grieves him so much when we turn away from that love, to whatever degree, whether it's like offering children a ball, or destroying our lives, or destroying the lives of others in whatever way. we have an opportunity to do the best we can to set ourselves right with God. And I think that will help the fear and anxiety and all that stuff go away. Because they're trying to make us scared all the time and seem like we're hopeless and hapless and heedless and that there's nothing we can do. Yeah, that's why they don't want us to pray. That's why they don't want you to ask Jesus for help. That's why they don't want you to go to God the Father and ask for his help. God's love permeates all things. God is everywhere present in all things. You can never possibly have a closer relationship to anyone or anything than to your Maker, who, again, as I've said many times when I was like, where are you, God? Where are you for me? How come I can't hear you? And then the thing that I would hear, which is probably God telling me, I am here, I'm everywhere present, and I'm filling all things. Because we're made from him, okay? And we have a free will choice. And we mess up a bunch of times and we have a chance to return to him. But angels who have fallen and become demons and all these evil beings and the like, they had a chance to make one choice. They knew something more than we ever did. We kind of go around blind in life for the most part compared to an angel that fell from heaven. They got to make a mistake one time because they knew a little bit more of God's intentions and they had disobeyed him. That's it. They're out. They don't have a chance. They're going to hell. So they're weird and twisted and perverted over all this time. And they've figured out ways to manipulate our lives and us, and they possess us because they still want material embodiment, these unclean spirits, these dark forces. They latch onto us and they use us. That's why the apostles and Jesus went around casting out demons. That's why to this day there's exorcism. Because we're something very important to God. And he hasn't given up on us, so don't give up on him, if you may have in the past. Because some of my comments said I tried the God thing. Try it again. Keep doing it. I know a lot of times prayer seems like you're calling God on the phone and you have to leave a message on his answering machine and you hope he'll get back to you. He knows. He is everywhere present and filling all things. That's how he can hear every single prayer. Because he is our unfathomable Father, and there's no such thing as the Earth Mother Goddess Gaia or any of that shit, so you can stop. But don't stop praying. And what's the evilest thing you could do? Sacrifice children. What's more evil than that? Sacrificing them up before they even get a chance to be born. Like you can't, you know what I mean? And what else can you do? Attack the womb and make it so that there'll be a fake way for us to get here. Not to say that they'll ever get what they're trying to do, but I mean, go look at what our movies tell us in the future, that they want to grow people in plastic bags and clones and all this stuff. Who knows how far along they really are in making these things happen. But we do know that they can only do so much. And one of the things that stops us from being preyed upon by evil, even though we will suffer down here, right? It's a fallen world. Praying to God helps. That's why it's in the Trisagian prayers, Trisagian, however you want to pronounce it. O Heavenly King, O Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, who is everywhere present and filling all things, the treasury of good things and the giver of life, come and abide in me, and cleanse me from every stain, and save my soul, O good one. There's a lot packed up in that statement, and why we pray that if you choose to do so. You could just say it in your own words, the same thing. I love you, God. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Help! I need your help. Please. And help these other people, help the people I care about, or help me to care about other people. And help the world and destroy their plans, and destroy the Bilderberg's plans, and destroy the all the evil, break up the Council of 300, make the social engineers feel guilty and repent, just take apart BlackRock, have the people of Earth declare Disney a monopoly, that it has to be broken apart. Give us something, Lord. You can pray. You're limited only by your own creativity, which is something probably given to us by God, right? We're made in his image and likeness to whatever degree. I think that where we become more like him is in our ability to pray and what we pray about. So use what God gave you and call him and tell him you're sorry, and then pray for a better world for us, because we know that the richest people in the world are praying for a horrible world where they have to keep offering us up as blood sacrifice to get the things that they want to appease demons that possess them. That's not what God wanted for us. He wants to take away the tears. He wants to take away our tears. So until then, we can do our part. And a huge part of our responsibility down here on earth is repentance and prayer to God. So don't give up on that. And this can be the part where I say, call your Father. Amen to that.